Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you're all having a good one today. There's a question I've been positing in my mind over the course of the past couple of weeks. I just kind of want to put it out there, and really ask you guys if you think like me on this one, in which case the Marvel Cinematic Universe will probably implode after Endgame. And I think there's a couple key reasons for that. I'll get to them as succinctly as I possibly can. The biggest one for me right in the front is fatigue. Fatigue, I think, is going to be a factor setting in once the 20th Century Fox deal is complete. Once those characters are going to be integrated in some fashion, Disney is either going to up the release of these movies per year from 2 to 3 to maybe 5. Different times a year, going to be see different types of films in the MCU. I think that's going to be a factor. I think people are going to really go, wow, there's a lot of films that are coming out and they just don't have the money. I've talked about this in a video the other day about why Bumblebee and Mary Poppins flopped, and it's the overcrowding of cinemas. And as we see movie theaters tout record numbers, and we realize that the record numbers predominantly come from tentpole films and franchises, Disney's going to need to keep this going by continuously pumping them out. And I think that could be a factor. It could be. It could be. I also feel that the pushing of Captain Marvel is going to be a reason why the MCU ends up imploding. People are not really hyped for the movie. I'm sorry to tell you, I don't think people are really hyped for the film. Everyone I've talked to from different walks of life have just been like, it looks okay. It just looks all right. And I know there's a lot of big Captain Marvel fans out there that are super excited for this. The first female-led movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Again, nothing wrong with that. Totally cool with that. But I think Brie Larson is going to be what tanks it, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people out there have seen her performance and just not been impressed. And also, they don't really care enough about the character. This character is not one that's been hyped to all hell and back over the span of the last 10 years or the span of the last 20 movies. It just hasn't happened. I mean, when you got Black Panther as a big part of Civil War, right? That was a good lead-in for the Black Panther movie. Now, unfortunately, we're getting the origin story for Captain Marvel before going to see Avengers Endgame, which surprisingly enough opens only a few weeks after Captain Marvel. It's really less than 2 months away. And the reason for this is obviously they want to use the hype train of Endgame in order to sell Captain Marvel on the audiences. They're hoping that people who are looking for their MCU fix are going to go see it and then just use that as a way to get hyped for Endgame. I was reading last night that apparently Captain Marvel needs about $680 million to break even. I don't think it's going to get it. I don't think it's going to gross more than Ant-Man 1, which was a respectable, like 500 plus million, but I don't think it's going to do as much as they wanted to. It might do better on home video once people get to know the character and see her in regards to everything involving Endgame. Then you're going to have the collectors that want to buy all the movies and everything else. That's what I tend to do. That's where it's going to make its money. But ultimately, I don't think the character is going to draw as much hype as people want. I'm sorry. The trailer, uninspired. It just uninspired marketing. And if they don't up that, they don't ramp it up a little bit and make it playful and fun, I just don't think it's going to have as much pull. And they want this to be the centerpiece. They want her to lead the next 10 years past Iron Man. This is who they want to be the figurehead of the MCU. I don't think it's going to work. And I think part of that, I do think a big part of that now is being altered by the $71.3 billion purchase that Disney is making of 20th Century Fox. And those characters are going to be merging their way in. And I think fans ultimately want those characters front and center above Captain Marvel. Because keep in mind, for 20 years now, almost, right? We've got X-Men movies. We've seen Wolverine. We've seen these characters for 20 years in their own contained universe, which by all accounts has more good movies than bad, which is great. And I do like those films. I still feel that Dark Phoenix is entirely unnecessary. And if Disney knew what they were up to, as soon as they get the rights to it, to completely shelve the film and then release it on home video and don't release it in theaters, don't make it part of the MCU, eat the cost on that one because the cost has already been spent out by Fox, and then go over and bring the characters into the MCU sooner rather than later. This is what's going to happen probably with Deadpool. I think that's the whole reason why we saw Once Upon a Deadpool being PG-13 was a test to see whether or not Ryan Reynolds would be good with that kind of market. And that's hit or miss considering the movie itself only grows so little. But with bringing in X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four into the MCU, this is where fans want to see the characters going over the course of the next 10 years. I know that under James Gunn, they wanted to move it to the cosmos, or to the cosmic side of things, which makes a lot of sense. And I think under James Gunn's direction, it would have done very well. I think with him being the architect of that, it would have done extremely well. We don't have that anymore. So it's time that they pivot. And if they've already kind of set this in motion with the Eternals and things like that, it could maybe run into a snag if they don't have the heart and soul of the MCU, that would be the Guardians of the Galaxy, to lead them to the cosmos. That's the bridge. That's how they expand it out there. Now, it's not to say that those movies aren't going to make any money. They absolutely will. You've got people like me who are completely indoctrinated into the cult of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and have been there for a decade. I've been there for an absolute decade. And they don't want to leave, but I have seen more people start talking about after Endgame just stopping going, that it's become too much. And that's entirely a solid theory. Now, the box office would probably beg to differ. People go see it. They come out in droves on the opening weekend. The movies make a lot of money. But what's the reason why Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War made as much as it did? Well, that's repeat watching, repeat viewing. And if people go and see them once and then start waiting for home video, that is going to cut into these markets and cut into the box office returns, which is where the company makes the vast majority of its money. So that's something to consider as well. I think also, and this is a big thing, this is a big factor for me personally, so this is entirely personal, this next section here, but I think the cancellation of the Marvel shows on Netflix is a huge, huge problem. I think it's a huge problem that Disney can fix. Now, Kevin Meyer, who works over at, who's basically the head of programming over there at Disney Plus, talked about it the other day, said that the shows are good, says he likes the shows, and that he wants to find a way to bring them over. Now, the contracts that we've heard about, at least this is coming from a rumor, is that they have to wait 2 years after cancellation to put those characters on either another network or on the big screen. Now, if I were the people at Marvel Studios over there with Disney, I'd be on the phone with Netflix going, okay, what do we have to do in order to get these characters back sooner rather than later? And Netflix right now is going to play hardball, kind of like TBS in regards to the licensing for the first 6 Star Wars movies. You know, they're going to hold on because they can. And Disney just forked out, you know, $71.3 billion for this asset takeover. So it's, you know, there's a lot there that's going to take time, and time is not a problem. I just finished up watching Daredevil season 3 last night. Absolutely loved it. And I'm very upset that the show is over, even though it did end in a good place where one could consider it a series finale, and that's okay too. But fans have been begging and pleading with Kevin Feige and Disney and Marvel for years now to integrate these characters into the larger MCU, and now is the good time to do it. It's a great time to start setting it up. Fans have been getting more and more frustrated with the separation of powers. That would be Marvel Studios in LA and Marvel Television in New York. The two separate entities, while underneath technically the same Marvel banner, have been in their own civil war since 2014, when Kevin Feige threatened to quit Marvel Studios over Ike Perlmutter controlling the budget and the purse strings on Civil War and not wanting to pay Robert Downey Jr. the $40 million that they wanted to give him to show up in Civil War. And keep in mind, that was a pivotal part of the movie, and it kind of needed to be there for Civil War to work. And that was a thing Kevin Feige fought for. And at the end of the day, he won, but it fractured the MCU for trying to integrate television into the movies. And ever since then, it's just been this constant fight. Well, with Disney Plus basically becoming its own thing, and them working on the TV shows over there, it's possible that these characters could find their way over eventually. But we do know that they don't want to put a lot of violence in there, so the violence would have to be very much toned down. The violence and the sex and the violence, at least in Daredevil, would have to very much be toned down to go over to Disney Plus. But it's not out of the question. At the end of the day, fans are going to start pushing for this, I think, harder and harder and harder. And the more that they're ignored or never given a straight answer, and this is Hollywood, where they never actually give anyone a straight answer, I think that is going to start weighing on this. When you start basically ignoring your fans' requests for certain things for so long, you do start losing people. And I think that's ultimately where we are right now, where Captain Marvel is the next big film on the horizon. It has very little hype. People are furious at Disney and Marvel for firing James Gunn over those tweets. There have been petitions reaching over 400,000 people to bring him back on board. You've seen people come together and buy billboard space near Disneyland in order to get people to talk about this, in order to get James Gunn his job back. It won't happen. We all know this at this point, but there is going to be a cost. And that cost will hit Captain Marvel. Mark my words. That's one of the other reasons why I think Captain Marvel is going to tank. There is a lack of trust with the MCU, because as we get closer to Avengers Endgame, as we get closer to seeing what could be the final adventure of the Guardians of the Galaxy, at least under the characters that we know at this point, the arcs that we know that James Gunn had input with, people are going to react, and there are going to be a lot of larger conversations about this. And as that continues to happen and Disney continues to ignore it, it is going to start festering with some fans. And those fans, as we've seen in regards to the response to The Last Jedi and how that effectively really hurt Solo, it did, as well as fracture the fandom, fracture the brand. This could lead to some very poor numbers and poor returns for something like Captain Marvel, who will unfortunately and unfairly get the brunt of the anger of the fan base that is furious at Disney for this. So that, on top of the cancellation of the Netflix shows that people really, really, really love, this is a precarious place that Disney, Kevin Feige especially, finds himself in. And if he was smart, he would look at the data, look at what people want, and go, okay, here's the plan that I had. That's no longer going to work. Okay, going over to the cosmic side of things isn't going to work for right now. Let's ground it again. Let's rebuild these characters, build towards Secret War over the span of the next few years, and then push it. Go from there. And that's what they should do. And then integrate the Netflix characters in at the earliest possible convenience, which won't be until about 2021 at this point, which is just, Jesus, that's way too freaking long. That's just way too long. I would work a deal with them in some way or another and get it made. Because that's what fans are going to be clamoring for. And again, look, I'm not saying that these movies will not be successful. I'm not saying that the franchise is going to die, but we're going to start seeing people moving away from it. I've seen many comments in my videos about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, something I've always been completely positive about. Basically say, I'm done after Endgame. I'm done after Endgame. I'm just done with it. All right. And I think that is a big factor here. There are people that have spent a decade dedicated to this, that love it, that are just maybe at the point where they're going, I'm just done with it. It's just too much. And that could be a factor as well. So I leave it to you guys. I leave it to you. This long-winded rant about why I think things could be going south for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that I'm just an idiot right in my mouth? Or do I have any good points here? Let me know in the comments. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. You can also call into our voicemail line at 818-350-3281. That is 818-350-3281. And I'll get to that on the call-in next week. Have yourself a great day, guys, and peace out.